Students, how are we doing today? Pretty good? You guys seem like you're pretty lively today. Hey, it's good to be back with you guys again in person. Listen, I missed you guys. I'm not sure if you missed me, if over the last couple of weeks you even thought about me once, but I have thought about you and I've missed you guys. I know you did, Trey. I know you did. But listen, I am glad to be back. I'm excited to be kicking off a new series with you guys called Vibes. We've talked about it a little bit, but I want to start off and share just this thought with you. We're going to be getting more into it today, but there is a universal truth that I want to share with you today. Do y'all know what I mean by universal truth? It means it applies to everyone. Are you ready for it? You might not have ever thought about this before. Are you ready? Are you prepared? Have you mentally gotten to a space where you can receive the truth that I'm about to tell you? Yeah. All right. Listen. So here it is. No one likes being told what to do. No one likes being told what to do. And like even right now, if I said, "Hey, raise your hand if you like being told what to do," some of you are punks and you're going to raise your hand, but I just told you to do it. Do you like that I told you to do it? No. See? No one likes being told what to do, and I see this the most in my dogs. I tell you all about my dogs. I have two Great Pyrenees, a little Pomeranian Chihuahua that runs the house, but our youngest dog, his name is Jasper, actually. He is a punk, all right? He is a straight up punk, and he has what I call the side-eye. Do you know what the side-eye is? You guys know? Like if he's about to get into something, he kind of looks out of the side of his eye, his mouth opens just a little bit, and he stops. And he's just waiting. He's like, I know I'm doing something that I'm not supposed to do, but I'm going to see if you care enough to stop me from doing it. And what he's saying in that moment is, I don't like being told what to do. And especially we're taking him out to go use the bathroom, and he loves sticks, he loves pine cones, whatever he can get his hands on, he's going to get it. And it's so funny. He thinks he's so like slick, right? So he'll like pick it up, and he gets so excited he starts bunny hopping. He's a 100-pound dog, and he starts like bunny hopping because he's so excited that he found the stick. And we're about to go through the door, and he stops, just looks at me. He's just checking if I am going to do something about it. And the reason he isn't, listen, I get it. I'm not even mad because I don't like being told what to do either, right? So I get where he's coming from. But listen, students, what if I told you were being told what to do every day? What if I told you were being told what to do every day? And I'm not talking about like your parents telling you what to do. I'm not talking about like some curfew that was set. I'm not talking about school assignments from your teacher. I'm not talking about some bathroom rule or sports rule you have to adhere to. But I'm saying deep in the core of who you are being told what to do. It's in these unfiltered moments that the real you come out. And what I mean by unfiltered moments, it's in those moments where you say or do something that you'd rather not people see, that you wish, you regret. You say, hey, I probably shouldn't have said that. I probably shouldn't have done that. It's in those moments, if you think about it, that you realize that there is something else in control. I'm talking about things like anger, right? Maybe for you, anger has control on you. And maybe it's anger about some unmet expectation. Maybe it's anger about broken promises or some conflict that you have gotten caught up in. But maybe anger has some control on you. Maybe it's anxiety, right? Maybe there's some changes going on in your life. Maybe there are some unknowns in your future. And you would say, hey, anxiety has some control in my life. Then maybe it's jealousy, right? Maybe you would say, hey, I don't have any of the things I want. And when I look around, everyone else has all the things that I want. And jealousy has some control. And maybe it's loneliness. Maybe you would say, hey, I don't have anything or anyone. And when I look around, it seems like everyone else does. And maybe loneliness has some hold on you. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe you've done something. You've made some mistake. Maybe something has happened that you've done. Or maybe something has been done to you and you feel so overwhelmed by guilt. If anyone knew this, if someone knew that about me, I don't know what I would do. And guilt has crept in and has control in your life. And the series is called Vibes, and Vibes is kind of another word for what are you feeling? What is your emotions? And these emotions can creep in and take control in your life. And like I said, we've already said we don't like other things having control. We want to be autonomous. Autonomous is two-word, autos and nomi. That means self-law or self-rule. We want to rule ourselves. We want to be in control. But the reality is that's never the case. There are always other influences fighting for control in your life. And contrary to what you might have heard when it comes to the topic of vibes or emotions, maybe you've heard, hey, emotions are bad or emotions are negative. Hey, you're only supposed to like the good emotions, but don't deal with bad emotions. Maybe you're like, hey, happy's good, but angry and sadness, hey, that's bad. But all emotions are good when they're in their proper place. Maybe you've never thought about this before. It's good for you to feel fear when you're in a scary situation. It's good to feel fear if you almost got into a car wreck and maybe you're a little shocked after it. It is good to feel fear in that moment because you're experiencing something real. On the other end, it is not good to feel happy about someone else being injured, someone else being sick, someone else being hurt, when emotions, whether you would consider them positive or negative, when they are in their proper place, that is where they are supposed to be. And listen, we're starting this new series, and we're going to be diving into the topic of vibe, diving into the topic of emotions, and specifically the control they have on your life. And here is why I think it's important. Jesus is going to speak into this, but I want you to hear this, students. There is going to be a day where you have some friendship, you have a relationship, maybe it's some family dynamic, maybe it's something going on, and I don't know when or what it's going to be. But you are going to do or say something that's been influenced by an emotion that has control over you. You are going to do or say something because you have been influenced by an emotion that has control over you. And listen, and you might say, hey, that wasn't me, right? Like, I don't know who that was. I don't know who said that thing. I don't know who did that thing. That's not the real me. And definitely doesn't look like Jesus in those moments. But it's in these unfiltered moments that you realize who you really are. And this is where we're going to be going today, and Jesus is going to speak into it. But before we lose control of our behaviors, before we ever lose control of our behaviors, we lose control of our hearts. Before ever any word or action comes out of us, before we lose control of our behaviors, we lose control of our hearts. And the heart is, in the Jewish mindset, it was the seat, it was the controlling point of your morals, of your emotions, of your thoughts. Everything came out of the heart. And it says when you're talking about the heart, it's talking about who you really are. In the deepest place, like in the truest place, not some mask that you put on to make people think you're better than you are, not some religious activity that you're doing to make people think you're more religious than you are. He said, in the deepest place, who you are, that is the heart. And Jesus is going to speak into that. Jesus is going to have an encounter, much like all of his other encounters with some religious of the day. In Mark chapter 7, we're going to see in verse 1, it says, "Now when the Pharisees gathered to him with some of the scribes who had come from Jerusalem, they saw that some of his disciples ate with hands that were defiled, that is, unwashed. For the Pharisees and all of the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands properly, holding to the tradition of the elders. And when they came from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash their hands." And so what they are saying here is, he's saying, hey, they've introduced a couple of groups of people. They're the Pharisees. The Pharisees were like these super religious people. Like they would have been the person who attended like every service that was open. Like they knew their Bibles really well. It was really important to them. They were like the super religious people. But then it mentioned the scribes. And the scribes are actually a really interesting people. They are like church lawyers, right? Their job was to get into the legality of what the Bible said as it applied to your life. So like if there is a dispute over land and you're saying, well, this person has wronged me based on this, a scribe would come in and they would pass judgment on who was right and who was wrong in those situations. When it came to taxes, like all of these things that a modern day lawyer would actually do, that's what the scribes did. And then it said something else, and we're going to get into it in a little bit. It said the tradition of the elders. At that time, they really just had mainly the Old Testament, and specifically like the first 5 books of the Bible, the law, and that's kind of what they obeyed. That's what they followed. And then they had the tradition of the elders. This is also called the oral Torah. And it was these commands and extra rules that they had added on that were only passed down orally through this group of people. It was never written down. It wasn't passed out so everyone could know what it was. It was just this group of people that knew these secret rules. And if you disobeyed them, they were going to tell you about it. And so that gets us to where we are today in Mark chapter 7, verse 5. Because these people are about to tell Jesus that he messed up. It says, why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat with defiled hands? So you see there is a specific law that the tradition of the elders had, that they were supposed to wash their hands before they ate food. And you guys are probably like, well, that's just some good common sense right there. Like, you don't have to write it down for me to do that. But this had nothing to do with cleanliness. Their cleanliness standards weren't a big deal then. They weren't trying to prevent the coronavirus of their day. Like this specific rule was only about one thing, that people would see them wash their hands and think that they were more spiritual than everyone else. That is what this rule was for. This act of washing the hands. Maybe it's maybe you have someone that you're around and they're like, you're about to eat and they're like, let us pray. And they have this long, eloquent prayer that's supposed to make them seem so great in that moment. That's what is going on right here. And they are trying to seem more spiritual than everyone else around them. And this is Jesus' response to it. He says, you leave the commandments of God and hold to the tradition of men. And what he's saying there is he's saying, hey, God has already said what you're supposed to do and what you're not, and you've added rules to it. And not only have you added rules to it, you care more about those rules that you created than the things that God created. You care more about everyone seeing the things that you're doing and being spiritual and seeming spiritual than actually doing spiritual things. And the specific issue, Jesus kind of brings up this whole other issues. He's like, you guys are talking about this rule right this very moment. You guys are taking money that you're supposed to use to take care of your parents, and instead you're giving it to the church so that people think that you're really generous, and your parents are suffering because of it. And because it was in the tradition, hey, if you give more money to the church, it's okay. And Jesus is calling them out on it, and they're not very big fans of it. They're like, hey, no, it's okay. I'm being generous. My parents are going to figure out their own junk. They only raised me, took care of me my entire life. It's not that big of a deal. And Jesus is going to have some strong opinions about this. In Mark chapter 7, verse 14, this is his response to that whole situation. He says, hear me, all of you, and understand. So I want to modernize this a little bit. He said, hey guys, listen up. I have something really important to say right here. He says, there is nothing outside a person that by going into him can defile him. But the things that come out of a person are what defile him. And Jesus is going to get into this a little more. But I want to tell you something. He's talking about the way that the body works. He's saying, hey, no matter what I put in my mouth, it's all going to the same place. Like there's nothing extra special about it. You guys know how the body works, right? What comes in is going to come out, right? And Jesus is saying, hey, it doesn't matter if I do this extra spiritual hand washing. It's all going to the same place. And he's saying, you care more about this spiritual act before you let these things into your body, but you're not worried about the things that are coming out of your body. He's saying you're more worried about behaviors that would keep disgusting things out of your body to make you look more spiritual, but you are not worried about the disgusting behaviors that are coming out of your body. And specifically why they are coming out of your body. And this is how Jesus kind of summarized. It's almost like they're in this courtroom, right? Like, do you guys like legal dramas, like courtrooms? Like, I'm a big fan. Like, you have like your one team over here, and they're attacking someone, right? You have your defense over here, and they're defending themselves. And then you have like a judge would be like right there, and you have like a jury over there, like all the dynamics that take place. And they're over here, and they're saying, "Hey, you didn't wash your hands." And then Jesus is over here, and he's saying, "Who cares about washing hands? Like, you're a really bad person," right? That's Jesus' kind of summation of his things. He's like, you care about washing your hands, but you don't care about all the other things that you're doing. Right now, you're stealing from your parents. And he's like, but you're caring about washing your hands. I think you have the wrong priorities. And this is what he says. This is Jesus' closing argument here. He says, "These people honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching doctrines, the commandments of men." Teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. And what he's saying is, hey, these people follow me. They're saying they follow me, but their hearts aren't with me. They're saying they worship me, but they're doing things that worship themselves. They're saying they love me, but the way they act and the things that they say something very different. They're saying the right things for the wrong reasons. And he's saying that their worship is in vain. And I don't want you to miss this, students. If we do not watch what is going on in our hearts, our worship is worthless. If we are not careful and watch what is going on in our hearts, our worship is worthless. Maybe you're thinking, "Hey, Jeremy, what do you mean my worship is worthless? Didn't you see me just a minute ago? I was singing really loudly in worship. Right? You're saying that was worthless? I even raised my hand one time. Like, I'm here at Rev Students, that's worthless? Hey, I helped pay for someone's lunch one time. Like, it happened one time. Like, you're saying that act of charity was worthless? And what I'm saying is, if your heart is not in the right place, I'm not saying it, Jesus is. He's saying it's worthless. Your church attendance, your good behavior, all of your rule following does not matter if your heart is not in the right place. And maybe you're saying, "Hey, I know sometimes I say things I don't mean, but that doesn't make me a bad person," right? And what I would say to you is that instead of saying sometimes you say things you don't mean, I think what you're really saying in that moment is sometimes you say things that you don't mean to say out loud, right? Maybe that's what you're really saying in that moment. Maybe you're saying, "Hey, I know sometimes I do things I'm not supposed to do," but that's not the real me. Like, that is, people make mistakes. And I think what you're really saying in that moment is that sometimes you do and say things that you don't mean to get caught doing or saying, but it is in those unfiltered moments that reveals what's really going on in your hearts. And what Jesus is saying here is that it is coming out of you because it is inside you. It's in your heart. The reason these behaviors are coming out the way that they are, the reason you're doing, it didn't just happen to you. It wasn't just circumstances you were caught up in. It is in your heart. Jesus expands on this in verse 20. He says, he went on, "It's what comes out of a person that pollutes. Obscenities, lust, thefts, murder, adulteries, greed, depravity, deceptive dealings, carousing, mean looks, slander, arrogance, foolishness. All of these are vomit from the heart. There is the source of your pollution." And it's really interesting that it uses the word vomit there. I think it is. When do you throw up? When you're sick. There you go. But throwing up isn't the part, like, you're not sick because you're throwing up. Throwing up is a symptom of something going wrong in your body. And just like that, Jesus is saying, hey, these behaviors, these things coming out of you are symptoms of a sick heart. And he's saying, hey, if it's not addressed, it will only get worse. And you want to know why God has a problem with it? Because it doesn't look like him, and it hurts the people he cares about. It hurts other people, and it hurts yourself. And specifically when it comes to our emotions, we're not saying that all emotions are bad. And even when it comes to emotions, we kind of get lost in two camps. If we're being real for a second, there's like the over-emotional side where everything's at a 10. Like, if I'm angry, I'm so angry. If I'm sad, I'm so sad. Like, there's no filter for how I should feel the way I do. And then there's the other side over here that's just like, hey, all of these emotions I'm feeling are a little overwhelming, so I'm just going to not address any of it. And both are wrong. Like we said earlier, it's about putting emotions in the proper places. And maybe you've even tried to share what's going on in your life before. Maybe you try to share what's going on in your heart, and it came out wrong, right? Like the emotions just came out a little bit harsher than you thought it would, or a little bit worse. And maybe you're thinking, man, I just wish I knew what to do. The author of the book of Proverbs is literally the smartest man that has ever lived. And I know that because the Bible says it. And so it's not my opinion. You can take it up with the God of the universe if you have a disagreement. But this is what he says. It's kind of when he gets older in life in this specific passage, he's going to say, hey, young men, young people, come listen. It's almost like this old man. You know how like old people are kind of just cute? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, he kind of has like a cane. He's like, come on over here. And he's coming over here. He's like, hey, I have something I need to tell you. And he's about to get in on this long story. And you know it's going to be a long story. But you're hoping he's going to say something important. And this is what he says. Above all else, guard your heart. For everything you do flows from it. He says, above all else. More important than anything, guard your heart. And when we guard things, we protect things that are important to us. What do you do when you have money? Before you spend it, you protect it. Like, you can't spend money that you lose. Maybe you put it in a wallet. Maybe you put it in a bank. Whatever you do, you're protecting it to make sure that nothing happens to it. If you care about your family, you protect your family, right? You lock your doors at night. You have a security system in your house because you protect what you care about. He's saying, hey, more than you protect your money, hey, more than you protect your family, the process of protecting and guarding your heart is more important because everything in your life starts right there. So my question for you students is, how's your heart? How is your heart? The Puritan writer John Flavel, he wrote that the heart is a lot like a musical instrument. And what he said is that as we move away from God, as we distance ourselves from God, we become out of tune with Him. So this guitar is in tune right now. You hear that? Sounds same, but he's saying, hey, as we go, we just get out of tune, guys. We get out of tune and we grow distant and our heart becomes unguarded. Things begin to move in and take control of our lives. Things begin to come in and control us, and we begin making decisions and saying things and doing things that don't look like Jesus. But he's saying, hey, as you spend time with me, you get back in tune. You get back in tune with God. You begin to line up with Him. He begins to have the control in your life again. And I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of bad bosses in my life. But I can tell you this, that emotions are not good bosses, students. Emotions are not good bosses. Your feelings are not good bosses. But Jesus says that He can be a better boss for you. He actually says, hey, let my peace rule in your hearts. He's saying, let my peace be the boss over all the things that you do. When the music of your life is getting out of tune, would you just spend some time with me so we can get you in the right key? And listen, it's because of Jesus, students, and I don't want you to miss this. It's because of Jesus that emotions don't have to be the boss of us. We want to be autonomous. We want to be self-rulers, but the reality is we never will be. There is something that is always going to have control over us. But here is the thing. We get to choose what it is. Right now, you get to choose what it is. And Jesus is saying, hey, I am a better boss than all of those emotions that try to control you. So as we get ready to close, I want you to do one thing. If everyone can just pay attention real quick. We're going to do one thing. I want you to say, you're not the boss of me. I want you to say, anger, you're not the boss of me. Anger, all of your broken promises, all of the imaginary arguments in my head that I win over and over again, you're not the boss of me. Say jealousy, you're not the boss of me. All of the feelings of inferiority, all the feelings that I have that everyone else is going right with them and everything bad is going wrong with me, you're not the boss of me. Say fear, you're not the boss of me. Fear of failure, fear of the future, fear that you won't measure up to some standard that someone has given to you, that's not the boss of you. Fear of anxiety, of change, of future, that's not the boss of you either. And I want you to listen to this, students. This is what Jesus says in Matthew chapter 11. He says, come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. So students, here's my question. Where's your heart? What are you letting control you right now? And how long are you going to let it do it? How are you going to let these inferior bosses control your life anymore when the God of the universe says, I will give you peace, I am gentle, I will take the burdens away from you. If you're tired, come to me. Saying, I am a better boss. Pray with me real quick, students. God, we come to you today, Lord. We are thankful that you care enough about us to care about what's going on in our hearts. And that even when our hearts come out of alignment, even when our hearts get out of tune, God, you are constantly drawing us back in. Now, I don't know what's in control of your heart today. I don't know what emotions are controlling you right now, but here is what I do know. There is a better boss available for you. One who has peace, one who has hope, one who has joy, one who does not give up on you, one who does not forsake you. He says, hey, if you're troubled, come to me. If you're burdened, come to me. If you are tired of not being in control, if you're tired of all of these emotions ruling your life, come to me. My prayer for you, students, is that you would spend some time evaluating what's in your heart. Because if we don't watch what's in our hearts, our worship is worthless. And we might find ourselves in a place we never wanted to be. God, we thank you, we love you, we trust you. In Jesus' name, amen.